Good evening. My name is Evan Gregory, and this is Bible Answers. We are continuing our study in the book of Colossians. Tonight, we're going to be starting chapter 3. And so you can follow along with us here. We'll have our slides with the scriptures on them. And again, this is brought to you by the North Columbus Church of Christ. We are located in Columbus, Mississippi, and our website is northcolumbuschristians.com. You can see the link scrolling below me. And not only do we have our Facebook page, we also have a YouTube page as well. That's North Columbus Church of Christ. You can go on there, subscribe to it, and you can see our previous videos that we put up for Bible Answers. And so a couple of weeks ago, we finished up chapter 2, and we're just continuing on our study in Colossians, and so we're going to go through the first 11 verses in chapter 3. And if you didn't watch the video on chapter 2, at the tail end of that chapter, we see where Paul is writing about these man-made doctrines, these traditions of men. Those things should have no part in a Christian's life. That they were raised with Christ in baptism, and that they're raised, as Paul also puts in Romans chapter 6, to walk in newness of life. And he continues that thought in chapter 3, beginning in verse 1. He says, "If then you were raised with Christ, seek those things which are above, which where Christ is, sitting at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things above, not on things on the earth. For you died, and your life is hidden with Christ. When Christ, who is our life, appears, then you are also will appear with him in glory." And so again, you were raised with him, again, connecting those thoughts on baptism in chapter 2. And so you're raised with him. And so where is Christ now? Well, Paul says that he's sitting at the right hand of God. He's with God, sitting at the right hand. And so, therefore, if you died and were raised with Christ, you should be, of course, we're not sitting at the right hand of God, but you should have your mind on the things above. You should be thinking those spiritual, heavenly things, and not to be concerned about the things on the earth. Don't get caught up again with these man-made philosophies. He also talked about these regulations of do not touch, so on and so forth. And also when you think about these other types of sin, you think about any type of physical desire that we may have. Um, that's not us. That's not what we're about. That's not what Christians are about. They're no longer worried and focused on the things of the earth, but rather on the things which are above. He says, "For you died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God." Uh, Again, I reference Romans 6. Paul talks about this idea as well. And even when Jesus talks about this idea of self denial, that we have to deny ourselves, bear our own cross, and we see that it's no longer about what I want to do. When I become a Christian, I'm now focused on the things of God. I'm not worried about my own desires, I'm worried about the things of God. And so then he says, when Christ, who is our life, appears, then you will appear with him in glory. All right. So we have that hope of salvation. We're going to be with him in glory. So we were raised with Christ. So we think on those things that are above. Our life is hidden with Christ. And so we have died as well. Also in Second Corinthians, we see this aspect of bringing every thought captive to the obedience of Christ, and it's just everything about us is uh, imitating the things of Christ. And so, therefore, when Christ is our life appears, so this second coming, we're going to appear with Him as well. We will have that reward. Moving on to verses 5 through 11, it says, "Therefore, put to death your members which are on the earth, fornication, uncleanness, passion, evil desire, and covetousness, with his idolatry. Because of these things, the wrath of God is coming upon the sons of disobedience, in which you yourselves once walked when you lived in them. But now you yourselves are to put off all these: anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy language out of your mouth. Do not lie to one another, since you have put off the old man with his deeds, and have put on the new man, who is renewed in knowledge according to the image of him who created him, where there is neither Greek nor Jew, circumcised nor uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave nor free, but Christ is all and in all. All right. So verses 1 through 4, think on those things which are above. Therefore, he's already hinted to this. Put to death your members which are on the earth. Again, those evil desires. And he lists some of them: fornication, uncleanness, this general uncleanness, passion, evil desire, and covetousness. I think we all understand what these things are. We have, our focuses are, maybe when we think about covetousness or greed, we're wanting those things which someone else has. This evil, again, this general evil desire. And notice what he says about covetousness, that it is idolatry, that we are putting other things, these things on earth, in a position above God. We're wanting them so much that we're willing to do just about anything for them. We're willing to sin in order to have them. And Paul says those things are idolatry. It's just as if you set up some idol in your house or in your front yard or what. It's the same thing. It's what your focus is on. And generally, all of these things, we think about it, is some sin that we are willing to put self above God, above Christ. That again, it's just what we want to do. And we see those again: fornication, uncleanness, passion, evil desire, and covetousness. And Paul continues to write, it says, because of these things, because of these sins, the wrath of God is coming upon the sons of disobedience. Those that continue to live in this, and of course, this is just a general description. He calls these individuals the sons of disobedience. This is what they're out there continual. They continually walk in disobedience. And he says, those in Colossians, those Christians in Colossians, they once walked in those things. He says, you yourselves once walked when you lived in them. So this is who they were before. This is who they are now. All right. There's a change, and there better ought to be a change that takes place amongst these Christians and amongst us today. It continues listing some other things in which we are to put off: anger, wrath, blasphemy, filthy language out of your mouth. You think about the things such as like fornication. Also, there's a list in 1 Corinthians 6, which is some terrible things. Also, I believe it's Galatians chapter 5 or chapter 6. John talks about murder, which I think is obvious to all, that one, it is sinful to commit murder, and a Christian does not do these things. But think about what these things, such as anger, wrath, malice, filthy language, those things, um, they seem to be more common. You think about all, say, for example, murder and fornication. You say, "Oh no, I don't do that. Obviously, I don't do that," and you shouldn't. But these are just as important to give up, but they're seemed, at least for me, much more difficult to give up. That it's such an easy thing to become angry and lash out about something, or to have wrath, or we see here malice, blasphemy, filthy language. He says, do not lie to one another. Think about that for a minute, how easy it is to lie. There's people, religious people, that would condone lying in certain situations. Again, this idea of situational ethics, that maybe in some certain situations it's okay to sin. But Paul says, don't lie, period. Do not lie to one another. Why? Because you put off the old man, you put off those things that you used to do, and you put on the new man. It says, who is renewed in knowledge according to the image of him who created him. as we continue through the book of Colossians, notice the many times Paul references the knowledge of God. That it is of the utmost importance that we know Him, and the only way we can really know more about Him is through His Scriptures. That we know Him, and through that we can be renewed, we can be encouraged, we can understand what He wants for us, and we can understand the hope that we have through living for Him. And it says that we are renewed in knowledge according to the image of Him who created Him, where there is neither Greek nor Jew, circumcised nor uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave nor free, but Christ is all in all. And so, what Paul is saying here is that through the gospel, these barriers, for example, with circumcision or nationalities, there were those that were not Jews could become proselytes, but there were some limitations. Some specific nationalities could become a proselyte, but they were limited in how they could serve. Maybe they couldn't become a part of the assembly, as we see, for example, in the book of Leviticus. And so here, all those things are thrown away. The Jews, you look throughout the New Testament, have a continued issue with Gentiles becoming Christians and Jews wanting to hold on to certain parts of the old law. But again, Christ has torn all that stuff down. There's no longer uh, that's no longer a concern, and it's no longer maybe any type of barrier. There's no, certain races of people are not banned from becoming Christians. Certain races are not required to do more or less activities or things for God when they become Christians. None of that is. It's everyone is equal. Everybody stands on the same footing when the gospel is being presented. And he ends this again. He says, Christ is all and in all. He's the totality of everything that we see. Again, we're not concerned about the law. We're not concerned about those traditions of men that we see in the latter part of chapter 2. Once we have the gospel and the pure gospel, that is all that we need. Once we have Christ, that is all we need. And so we're going to end there, and we're going to finish chapter 3, Lord willing, next week. And know this is kind of short. If you have a question or a comment, feel free to leave that. I'll try to get back and respond to those things. Hopefully, just make it about the scriptures, even if it's not related to the text that we're talking about here. If there's some general Bible question, leave that question or comment, and I'll try to respond to that. And even if it's on our YouTube videos, I occasionally look at that, and we'll respond to that as well. But until next week, again, we're going to be continuing through the book of Colossians, and we're going to be finishing up chapter 3, Lord willing, next week. And so until that time, I hope that you all have a good night and a good rest of the week. Thanks.